Here's an infographic if you are a visual learner, okay? So let's just say the tip of this chart is where Avatar would be. Some of you might know, Netflix is adapting Avatar: The Last Airbender into an original live-action series. When they first announced this, they said that they would be working with the original creators of the show to make this vision happen. A lot of people were super excited about this because there was a live-action movie a couple years ago that we will not talk about, but it was a total flop because the CGI was bad, all the characters were whitewashed, and literally everything else was terrible about it. And so this was a way for the original creators to come into this live action and try to make things right this time around. Unfortunately, recently the original creators announced that they would be leaving the Netflix project because they had creative differences and they didn't agree with some of the decisions that were being made with this Netflix production. Then there was an article released from inside sources that detailed reasons for why the creators left, ranging from the budget not being big enough, Netflix wanting to open auditions to white actors, and wanting to make the show darker and more mature with romance, sex, and blood. The article hasn't been proven to be legitimate because the website is known for using clickbait and the writer has had a shady history, but I do think that there are some nuggets of truth with what really happened behind the scenes. I don't think the creators would have left a huge opportunity like this project unless there was something extremely wrong about it. And then it got me thinking, if Avatar is so difficult to pull off as a live action, what would be a better story to adapt instead? And then I realized it would be an adaptation of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. In this video essay, I will break down all the different components for why Avatar would not work as a live action and why ACOTAR would be the more successful and superior adaptation. First, let's introduce the two stories. Avatar is a Nickelodeon cartoon show that is the closest thing to perfection that humanity will ever attain. The story centers around the journey of a 12-year-old monk named Aang. He is an airbender, he is the last survivor of the air nomads, and he is the current avatar who is tasked to being the sole person who can save the world. He becomes friends with a young brother and sister who are waterbenders, and they travel around the world to make sure that he learns all four elements of the magic system so that he can defeat the Fire Nation that is currently at war against the rest of the world. A Court of Thorns and Roses is an extremely popular young adult fantasy series that is loosely based on Beauty and the Beast. The story follows a human girl named Feyre who is kidnapped by a fairy and brought into the fairylands as punishment, but she learns more about the fairy that kidnapped her and their feelings develop from hate to love, and she learns so much more that she didn't know about fairies before, like how they're basically humans but with magic and big dicks. So those are the two synopses of the two source materials that we're gonna go over. Let's break down the different categories for why ACOTAR would make a better adaptation than Avatar. First, we'll discuss the most tumultuous aspect for why people have such reservations about adapting Avatar. The casting is gonna be what makes or breaks the show, and based on Hollywood history, it's very unlikely for the decision makers to get things right. All the characters in Avatar are Asian, so much of the world building and the magic system is based heavily on a variety of Asian cultures, from Chinese to Japanese to Tibetan to Inuit. So not only does every single actor, including the main cast, the supporting cast, and the background characters, have to be the specific Asian ethnicity, the main characters definitely have to be Asian, and they have to be 12 to 15 years old. To stay true to the material, you would have to put in time and effort to look for actors that have the same age, the same ethnicities, the same appearance as the characters, and have competent acting skills to pull off a believable show. That is a lot to ask from Hollywood when they can barely fulfill the quota of one token Asian side character in a show. Plus, 20 to 30 something year olds are already playing teenagers, and we have a hard time believing that. This pretty much sounds like an impossible mission for them, but you know what is entirely possible? An ACOTAR adaptation. First of all, the main character, Feyre, is a 19-year-old, conventionally attractive, skinny white girl, which means that Netflix could easily tap into any of the brunette actresses that they already have in their original shows and movies, and she would already look the part. The rest of the fairies are immortal, but they take on the appearance of being in their 20s, and all of them are just incredibly gorgeous. They have sharp jawlines that could cut you across the screen, and based on all the fan art, they have primarily primarily Eurocentric features. By primarily, I mean all of them do. So already we have the genetic makeup of Hollywood and Netflix actors. All you would really have to do is just pick a blonde guy for Tamlin and a guy with black hair for Rhysand. But the icing on the cake here is that Netflix can still earn performative diversity points by casting people of color. Because despite all the characters having very Eurocentric features, many of them are described as having sun-kissed skin or tan skin, which is the perfect opportunity for Netflix to hire half-white actors or racially ambiguous actors that are still light-skinned so that Netflix can make sure they don't get too dark and they still have diversity. And at the very least, the white actors can get a spray tan, maybe Ariana Grande can be a guest star in one of the episodes, but regardless, this type of casting is the perfect blend of ambiguity and safety that Netflix is comfortable with. So overall, playing these characters fit the age range, the color range, the Eurocentric beauty standards, and at the end of the day, the only child actor that you would have to hire is Rhysand and Ferris' imaginary child when they have sex in the Christmas novella and Rhysand imagines his unborn son as he comes. That's basically one scene. You can have a child actor come into the studio, take a picture so that they can insert it in the Christmas Hallmark special that Netflix will film, and then send the child back to school. You're obeying child actor laws with the work-life balance. The kid has a nice thing to add to his resume, and it just logistically works out for this production. I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but the biggest benefit of adapting A Court of Thorns and Roses instead of Avatar is not a single Asian in sight. Not a single one. You don't have to hire any Asian people, baby. Boom, you're free. It's perfect. Not a single chink in sight. Hollywood is safe once again now that they aren't forced to hire an Asian actor. Another reason why people are reluctant to believe that the Avatar live action would work is because of the budget limitations. For a story like Avatar, you would need to invest some serious money to even pull off the scale of what the cartoon represented. First of all, you would have to CGI all of the fire bending, the water bending, the earth bending, the air bending. You would also have to build out entirely fictional and fantasy landscapes that are based in Asian-inspired nations. You would have to CGI a ton of animals that don't exist in the real world, including a sky bison that is literally the size of a house, and have the characters fly around in the sky on top of that bison and still make it look realistic. Meanwhile, the only animal that you would have to CGI for ACOTAR is Rhysand's massive monstrous cock. And I would argue that this is a necessary expense because while Appa is a very cute creature, he's really just an animal sidekick, whereas Rhysand's massive schlong is an important and pivotal character to the story. Unlike Appa, that dick is not the furry side character, it's the furry main character, and it's the reason why we keep on reading it. Instead of animating a sky bison flying around the mountains, it would be so much easier to just animate the mountains shaking from Rhysand coming so ferociously with his monstrously big dick. Also, the characters in ACOTAR don't need to be flying around all the time if you need to cut down the budget. In the books, the fairies can also winnow, which means that they can transport from one place to another without the readers having to actually read them moving around. It does not require any special effects to have one actor disappear and then reappear in a new scene. At the very least, you can just throw in some pixie dust that you get from Claire's for like $1 a bottle. You know, just cut the cameras, have the actor run away, roll the camera again, throw in the pixie dust. You can even get that for free at your niece's birthday party. There's just so many ways to slim down the budget and cut corners that Avatar absolutely does not allow you to have. I'm pretty certain that the budget for adapting A Court of Thorns and Roses would be 1/3 the amount of adapting Avatar if you were to pull it off successfully, except the 1/3 of that budget for ACOTAR would be just as successful and therefore the most profitable. Okay, I'm gonna take it a step further and actually calculate the budgets for each prospective live action just to prove to you that you can save so much money if you adapted A Court of Thorns and Roses instead. The Avatar movie that we will not talk about beyond this video had a budget of $150 million just to cover the first season of the show, and they barely even covered it. It was very condensed and it wasn't even accurate, so $150 million has proven to not be enough to cover Avatar Avatar faithfully, because I saw that scene where White Katara tried to waterbend and that shit was weak as fuck. So let's keep in mind that 150 million is kind of bare minimum to cover one season of Avatar. You multiply that by 3 seasons in total, and then you would get $450 million to produce the entire Netflix live action with the same quality of poor special effects in the movie that we will not talk about beyond this video. Now let's look at A Court of Thorns and Roses. Based on the recent Marvel shows that Netflix has produced, like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, The Defenders, it has been around 3.3 million per episode. But for ACOTAR, let's round it up to 5 million, just for the sake of covering all that we can cover for like the fantasy clothes, the castle, just basic stuff like that, so that you know that it's a fantasy show. But it's nothing crazy like Avatar. You don't have to build any country from scratch. You just go to like a forest somewhere and just film there. So the average length of a Netflix show is 8 episodes. And if we were to multiply that by 5 million, then one season would be 40 million, which means that 3 seasons times 40 million equals 120 million in total. So this is going to be the base budget for ACOTAR to cover the location scouting, the wardrobe, the casting, whatever. And we also need to account for the CGI to cover Rhys-An's stick. I'm scaling it down here because my notebook isn't big enough to fit his stick. So this is really just for your own purposes to understand. The average cost of CGI and animation and special effects is $33.7 million. So in order to see a realistic depiction of Rhys-An's schlong, we're gonna have to spend $33.7 million on top of our $120 million. So that means we are spending roughly around $153 million. Then we also have to spend money on fairy dust when they would know. So let's just say that we don't want to spend this at Claire's because we want like a bulk order, which means that we would want to order it from Amazon. They're selling these sets of fairy dust bottles for $10.99 plus free shipping. So you're already saving money on that. We would use that on all 8 episodes. That would be $87.92. And then you triple that for the 3 seasons that we're going to cover for the show to represent the 3 books. $263.76 for the fairy dust budget. Then we also have to get some fairy ears because all the fairies have pointy ears. That's what makes them fairies besides their big dicks. So you can buy a set of them on Amazon for $8.99. You multiply that by 8 episodes, you get $71.92. Then you multiply that by the 3 seasons, you get $215.76, and that is the budget for the prosthetic ears for all of the characters. Then you're also going to need to green screen some stuff whenever the fairies fly around in the sky or whenever they have sex in the sky. So a green screen you can get as cheap as like $50. And then since we're already ordering so much stuff, from the prosthetic ears to the fairy bottles to the green screen, we can use all of those packaging peanuts inside of the boxes to package up the fairies packages down there. Maybe in the scenes where you don't see the dick fully exposed, but you just see them walking around wearing pants, you can put the packaging peanuts inside of the pants. And so it's just nice to be able to repurpose some of the stuff. And if anything, it's kind of like recycling. So in total, for Avatar, we would have $450 million to cover 3 seasons if we want it to be the same quality as that terrible movie. Compare this to ACOTAR. When you add up all of those expenditures, it becomes $153.7 million plus $529.52. Look at the difference here. $450 million for Avatar, a low budget Avatar that won't be successful, compared to a faithful adaptation of A Court of Thorns and Roses for $153 million and 52 cents. The math just checks out. You can't argue with the math here. This is almost half the budget that would be required to make Avatar and still have it suck. Whereas ACOTAR is guaranteed to be a massive success. Here's an infographic if you are a visual learner, okay? So let's just say the tip of this chart is where Avatar would be at $450 million. And we're gonna put some sweat drops coming out of the tip here, just so that it shows like, oh man, we're sweating. Like this is a high amount of money to spend on. So we're just gonna be, like sweating all over the place here because that's a lot of money. A quart of Thorns and Roses is gonna be right here because it's only $153.7 million plus a few $500.52. So we are actually near the shaft. So when you look at it in context, $153 million is not even that big. If anything, it's like chump change. So the fact that we are staying near this shaft is amazing for a Netflix production. Honestly, this just makes sense financially, logistically, and narratively. I really don't know how to make it any clearer than this, but I hope that this math and these charts were useful for you to understand. The last thing I want to discuss that Netflix is likely struggling to deal with in adapting Avatar is agreeing on the overall tone of the show. There has been some speculation that they want to separate the live action from the cartoon series by aging the characters up and creating a darker and more mature tone with romance, sex, and blood. This is such an inherently wrong approach to Avatar because even though the original show did have dark themes, it still had humor and lightness to balance it out. And also, they're fucking 12 years old. The source material was meant for children, so it makes no sense to adapt it into a gritty fantasy. However, I understand the desire of wanting to adapt the show that appeals to younger people and has a built-in audience, but has the potential to expand the audience if you were to incorporate more mature themes. I also understand that Netflix probably has this huge wish to have their own Game of Thrones so that they can be just as successful as HBO. But that is why ACOTAR would be the perfect show to fit all of their needs. The source material is categorized as young adult, so teenagers already love it, but it's technically new adult, so 20-something-year-old adults love it too. And then there's also kinky shit throughout the books. So then you have the moms joining in. It has the range. It has the romance. It has the blood. And by God, it has the sex. Does Game of Thrones have a scene where two characters are banging in the sky? No, they don't. Netflix could be the first revolutionary streaming service that shows a bare-toned ass in the clouds up above. Think of the articles that would result from this. Think of all the memes that would spread across Twitter and get more people to check out the show. Game of Thrones will look like a vanilla children's playbook produced by Hallmark compared to Rhysand making it snow with his jizz. And that is cinema right there. In conclusion, Netflix wants to adapt Avatar into their own live action so that they can create their own Game of Thrones franchise with a built-in audience, a fantasy story, and a source material that has 3 seasons, so there's plenty to work with. But I would argue that A Court of Thorns and Roses makes for a much superior adaptation logistically, narratively, financially, pretty much every aspect that you can think of. It has all of those things that Netflix would want to make their own Game of Thrones. It has a built-in audience. It doesn't have the controversy of racial casting because you can still play it safe and half-assed. It has 3 books and a novella, so you can make 3 seasons and a Christmas movie. It has all the nudity that you could ever want to put in a Netflix show to make it mature and gritty and edgy. And overall, it just makes complete sense to go with ACOTAR instead of Avatar. I hope that this video essay has helped convince you that this is just the morally right decision to pursue. I truly believe that Netflix is missing out on an opportunity by investing their money and their energy into something that is not going to give them what they want, whereas A Court of Thorns and Roses gives them exactly everything that they want. Also, Sarah J. Maas is my queen and I want her to get her coin. I hope that this video has been educational for you and that you have been convinced to believe in the same cause as I do. And before I conclude this, I do want to say thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video and believing in my cause. Netflix has a lot of shows or movies that are only available in specific countries, and so what's nice about NordVPN is that you can unlock those Netflix shows from anywhere around the world. They have over 5,500 servers in 60 countries. They protect data while you're traveling or you're in public. They have 24/7 customer support through live chat and emails, and they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. With double data encryption, it makes it even easier to increase being anonymous. If you are interested, you can get 68% off NordVPN, which is only $3.71 per month. Plus, you get an additional month free if you go to nordvpn.com/readwithcindy or use my coupon code ReadWithCindy. Go ahead and subscribe to NordVPN and unsubscribe from my channel instead, because obviously I keep on recycling the same jokes over and over. And yet here you are. Thanks for the coin. Goodbye.
Leaves from the vine fall